Well, good morning. You all got so quiet. I'm like, maybe that's my cue. So here I am. It is so wonderful to see all of you and to have you here at our Critical Issues Forum here today. I'm Shan Cooper, by the way. By day, I actually get to build airplanes for Lockheed Martin. When I'm having fun, though, I'm here chairing the board for GPEE. Let me ask a question. How many of you are attending a Critical Issues Forum for the first time? Okay, wonderful. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I just took all of your pictures. I look forward to seeing you at the next forum, by the way, so it won't be your last. But we do have an exciting treat today. I think we've got some wonderful thought leaders on the topic today. I'm excited to sit here and actually learn myself. But you have a part to play in today's session, and that is your participation is going to be very, very important. And so, again, we've got some great leaders here today to share perspectives with us. And then at the end, we're going to have some time for you all to ask questions, to share your own perspectives. And so today should be an exciting day and a great use of your time. Again, as I mentioned before, I have the honor of serving as the board chair for GPEE. And I know joining me today are several of our board members. So I'd like to ask the GPEE board members to please stand so we can recognize you this morning. Wonderful, thank you. And again, thank you for being here as well. So without further ado, I want to bring forward our fearless leader for the GPEE. I want to ask our president, Steve Dollinger, to come forward and give us the president's overview this morning. So Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Shan is correct. We do have another exciting forum. You know, we do 2 or 3 of these a year, some critical issue. And the last one we did was last November around Common Core. And gee, what a foreshadowing that was of the legislative session and the work that we all did. So this is another big issue, but one that's really getting traction and cranking in Georgia. And that's that whole issue of teacher preparation, teacher training, teacher quality, teacher evaluation, compensation. So we're going to get into all that this morning. And by the way, this is going to be videoed, is being videoed, so it'll be up on our website probably by next Tuesday. So you can refer some of your friends who were not able to be here today to look at our website next week, and they can see parts of this. Let me take you through your packet just real quickly so you'll know what all is in there. Of course, we have the agenda there. I'll come back to that in just a minute. And as always, we have the bios for our panel, our speakers and panel members, so you can look at this and get the detailed background, but we will introduce names as they come up to be in the panel, and I'll say a few more comments about our guest speaker in just a minute. Then there is a brochure about the Georgia Teaching Fellowship Program, Woodrow Wilson Georgia Teaching Fellowship Program. As you read this is an exciting opportunity for the partnership to be working with the foundation to have this program in Georgia. As you read some information, you'll find out that it's been in 4 other states thus far. Georgia is the first southeastern state. And you can see the universities that are participating. 5 universities were selected. I think there were like 14 that were vetted. And those 5 are bold and courageous and willing to change the way that they are doing things in teacher preparation. And I know Piedmont has several folks here today to hear this program, but they are part of our team. The dean from Georgia State, Paul Alberto, is here, and so Georgia State's another one of those members. So you will read that, see some information, but you can refer back to this later and go on their website and ours to get more information. Coincidentally, and kind of serendipitously, is an article from the James Magazine. They ask us, just about every publication, to do an article for them. Dr. Dana Rickman, our Policy and Research Director, did this one. And as you look at this real quickly, it's not only about STEM, but about the Woodrow Wilson Georgia Teaching Fellowship Program. So good timing for that. You know about some of our community engagement programs, which we're now kind of referring to friendly and more popularly as local collective impact. It's interesting as we think about these names that are associated with programs, we were using community engagement as the term, the phrase, and that was really the work at the beginning and the process work. It's really collective impact, what you want to have as a result. But we worked on metrics with all the counties and school systems we worked with. And you recall a few years ago, the Gazetta Foundation had heard about that community engagement, that collective impact that we were experiencing across the state, and asked us to apply, or gave us the opportunity to apply for a grant there. Well, we're lucky to get that grant and then go into 2 school systems, Calhoun City and Tatnall County, that have a lot of Latino kids. So we're doing that community engagement, which was a real part of that work, but we were looking for a collective impact. And of course, Guzetta realizes it's not just for Latino kids. We'll have collective impact for the whole school system and hopefully for their whole county and their future workforce. The next thing in the packet is an update, a status report on that program. As you look inside, you can see some of the activities, the objectives. You can get a feel for the metrics we have, and you can see where we're hitting the mark and where we're still in progress. But some really neat pieces that are happening there. I'm excited about, the magnitude that some of these things can get leverage, and that's really what's great about having that support from Guzetta. We never realized some of the opportunities, like in Calhoun City, where they realized that they were not working with a lot of their Latino kids early on in the pipeline. And then Bobby Cagle, who's on our board with the Department of Early Care and Learning, realized that that was an omission for their part of their work. So now they are working with Calhoun City to take that program and perhaps leverage it across the state to really focus on that group of kids. So we can really end up helping a lot of kids across Georgia with a little program that started in Calhoun City. The next piece is an opportunity for us to join us on our distribution list. If you're on this distribution list, you'll get announcements for meetings like this, for our new publications, for our blasts. As a matter of fact, just yesterday we put out a blast to our partnership council across the state. It's interesting that the work we did with the Georgia Chamber putting together a coalition to support high standards really helped us with some victories in this last legislative session. But that issue is not over. Not only will it come back again next session, we're already seeing signs that there are some attacks on the new advanced placement standards that are rolling out. The first course to roll out is advanced placement history, and that's being attacked as having changed U.S. history and taken away references to the Constitution and George Washington and, crazy things like that that are not true. But we have the responsibility to give the facts to that so that you really understand the facts and the myths. And while this is the first AP history set of standards are to roll out, there'll be 33 others, including history and science, and things will get pretty inflammatory. So if you like that information, get on our distribution sheets, and then you can get that information as it rolls out. The blue sheets are the list of the folks who, by midday yesterday, had registered for this event. We hear from you that, of course, you like our content, but you also like the networking. This gives you a chance to see who's in the audience. And it's always fun to look at this, too, because, like us, it gives us a balance of government, business, foundation, education, community leaders, our fellows, our alumni fellows from our fellows class, with the media. We have several folks in media here today. Maureen Downey's not on here, but she was able to join us this morning. And if you have not had a chance to look at her blog this morning, she has an article there from Bradford Swan, who's here. He's the executive director for Students First, and coincidentally, his topic there is about the teacher evaluation program, which he and his organization support. So it's interesting to see how many of these things come together. Not in your packet, but on our website is our annual report that was just released. We don't make very many hard copies anymore. It's electronic, it's on our website. But I encourage you to look at this because it does talk about the impact that the partnership is having. You may remember me talking about last fall that with Shan's leadership and conversations among our board members, they have challenged us to be more bold. The partnership has always been pretty good about putting the light on issues, and we do that through our top 10 issues to watch and some other of our publications. But there's a balance between putting that light and in more heat on issues to move them along. And in their challenge for us to be more bold, we're balancing that light and heat, but with the coalition, for example, we cranked up the heat and we're able to be successful with that. So we're going to be prudent with that, still have that balance, but as we move forward, hopefully we'll continue that impact. But it gives you a chance to look through here and see some of the things, reflect back on what we did in 2013, including things like our top 10 issues, received a gold medal of recognition, just some of those kinds of things that we don't get to talk about a lot, you don't get to hear about a lot, but we're certainly proud of our small team and the work they're able to do. Before I introduce our speaker, there's one more piece I'd like to do, so I'm going to invite Shan and Henry Kelly to come up on the stage. Henry, I know I'm surprising you with this, but that's okay. Henry was the chair on the 21st annual bus trip across Georgia last year, and Shan has a word or two to say about that, as I do.
Yes, thank you. You know, oftentimes you have people who join organizations just so their name is listed. Come up here so people can see you, Henry.
Okay.
Yes, stand right. Just to have their names listed. You know, I'm a part of this organization, I'm a part of that organization. But every once in a while you meet that leader who really has education as a passion. And so when we were looking for a chair, someone who would take on the assignment of going across the state of Georgia, visiting all these various education institutions, Henry said, hey, I'll do it, I'll own this. And so as busy as he was right there engaging, again, following his personal passions, but also sending a message to all of us as what it means to be a real leader as it relates to education and all that's important to make that successful. And so I wanted to publicly today embarrass Henry and thank him. And I'm doing that. I'm being successful. But to really thank him for taking the time out of his extremely busy schedule as an executive for Georgia Power to take on that chairmanship role. We appreciate you so much. And so as a token of our appreciation, we wanted to present to you today Henry and the beautiful kids that he's touched, right? And it says, Henry A. Kelly, Chair, 21st Annual Bus Trip Across Georgia, Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education. Thank you for being a wonderful role model for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you sure did.
Okay. Why don't you get it?
That is a picture of the bus trip. Bill Maddox, our communications director, just took those pictures. Snaps a lot, and at the end of each stop, we'll go out to the bus, and on the bus are little pictures of the schools in which we're stopping. So Bill will get a bunch of the kids, or typically our guides at a school, to come out to the bus, and they'll point to the picture on the bus that was their school. So at this stop, Henry was with them. He just happened to be with them at that stop, so we got a picture of that. So it really kind of captures the fun and excitement we have when we go into a school and see the great things they're doing across Georgia. So now, on to our program. You can see that we're going to have a guest speaker. We'll be followed by a panel that will give you a chance to hear some of the voices of some of the pieces of this whole process that we're working with in Georgia. And then at the end, we'll have time for you to do Q&A. So be thinking about the questions you might like to ask. Like I said earlier, you have the large, long bios for our members. But right now, I'd like to focus on Dr. Arthur Levine, who will kick this off for us. It really is exciting for us to be partnering with the foundation to bring the Woodrow Wilson Georgia Teaching Fellowship Program here. It's just exactly the piece we need as we talk with Department of Education and Professional Standards Commission in our schools. This is the piece that Georgia needs. It's going to serve, and I've talked to Chancellor Huckabee. He wants to do the same kind of thing throughout all the institutions that prepare our teachers. We can look at these 5 as a catalyst. But to kick that off, we have a person here that has a tremendous background. You can see he's been a president of universities, most recently the Teachers College of Columbia University. You can see that he has a number of publications. He's authored a lot of reports and articles and books, but you see a thread through that, and the thread is that focus on improving teacher preparation programs at universities. In fact, in one of his reports, he talks about many of our teacher preparation programs like being a city in the Wild West. They're unruly and in chaos. So how can we bring some rule and order to those institutions? So we're going to hear from Dr. Levine. I think this is exactly what we need in Georgia, and this is the kind of leader that can help point the way for us. So with that, Dr. Arthur Levine, please come up to the stage.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. That's pretty good. It's a real honor for me to be with you today. And a very large part of the reason is I really do applaud the work of the partnership, and I'm a big fan of Steve Dollinger's. And there are partners in terms of the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship in this state. Because this panel is so very, very good, I'm only going to talk for a short period of time. Now, among people who've heard me talk for short periods of time, many say that's not apparent. I need to tell you one thing in the interest of truth in advertising. When I was still at Teachers College, I used to teach a course every year, every other year, and I got my last course evaluations. And I had one that said, if I had 20 minutes left to live, I would want to spend them in Arthur Levine's class. Because every minute with Arthur Levine feels like an hour. So by those standards, we have almost a full day together. I want to talk to you today about STEM and teacher education, but I want to put it into a large context. The United States is making a transition from a national analog industrial economy to a global digital information economy, being driven by science and technology and engineering and math. Change we're experiencing, we all know it because we're all going through it together, is profound, it's deep, it's rapid, and it's accelerating. It includes demographic change. The population's aging. We're going to lose a lot of our teacher force. Population's moving. They're all coming from my part of the country to Georgia. People are changing color. They're coming from abroad. The fastest growing groups are those with which the educational system has historically been least successful. We're also witnessing an economic shift. Low-end jobs are going abroad. There are no jobs for dropouts that can support a family. What we're finding is the high-end jobs are growing. They require more education than ever before. And the fact is we lack the labor force to fill many of those jobs now. What we're finding is the fastest growing jobs are in the STEM area. And what's happening in this state and other states is that standards are being raised to the highest levels in history for high school graduation because it's what the job market demands. We're experiencing a technological revolution. Now, I look around, think of all the things I have now that I didn't have when I grew up. My iPod, iPad, iPhone, flat screen TV, ATM, electric lights. Just wanted to see if you were paying attention. DVDs, microwaves, everything's in flux. From how we're born to how we die and everything in between. Entertainment, banking, dating, shopping, learning, communicating, and work. I had an interesting encounter. We were doing a study of undergraduates around the country, attitudes, values, experiences, and I was conducting a focus group. And I asked one of the students, how are you adapting to all this technological change? The student looked at me and he gave me an answer. I thought it was sort of a wise guy answer. I thought someday it could be a bumper sticker. It was actually brilliant. What he told me was, it's not technology unless it happens after you're born. Sort of like me asking you, how are you adapting to the car? What do you think about the refrigerator, huh? What we have now is, for the youngsters who are being born, even the youngsters in college, probably not fair, even the young adults in college, they were born, and by the time that that happened, there was already Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, texting, mobile phones, emails, IMing. We have is the first generation of digital natives who are being taught in analog schools and colleges by digital immigrants as their faculty. We're going to see dramatic change. Textbooks are going to disappear as we know them. They're going to become self-paced and adaptive. Testing is going to change. Going to move in the same fashion. We're going to be able to take students through virtual reality to the place they've only read about in the past or had been taught about. At the same time, the world is growing flat. Our children aren't competing any longer, as you all know, with the kid down the block. Competing with kids in Korea and India and China for the same jobs. Our country is competing with other countries for those jobs and the industries that produce them. And what's become increasingly clear is that every state is competing with every other state for those same resources. Now, I don't know anywhere where these changes, these extraordinary changes, are more apparent than in Georgia. Demography, the technology, the economy, the globalization. In the next 4 years, 17% of all new job growth is going to be in the STEM area. STEM is going to be a driver in Georgia's future, economy. And Georgia brings powerful resources to the world. Leadership, it has human capital, it has finances, it has a realization of what's coming, a real sense of what needs to be done. But there are also limitations. There are real challenges. Georgia's children aren't performing as well as their peers in math and in high school graduation rates. And for industry, the negative. Schools, and it makes labor market seem less appealing. There's also an achievement gap for kids by income, race, geography. For kids in the lower end of that achievement gap, not ready. They're not ready for the job market. They're not ready for college. With regard to STEM teaching, universities aren't preparing enough STEM teachers in this state or in most other states. 1 out of every 8 teachers is in a STEM field. Over 49% of all districts, nearly half, say they have STEM vacancies and they're understaffed in the area. Too many teachers are teaching out of field. They're not STEM teachers, but they're teaching those courses because there's nobody else to do it. Teacher attrition, particularly in STEM and in high-need districts, is too high. Quality of teachers isn't as strong as needed. It's true in service, it's true pre-service. Teacher education programs at most universities aren't as strong and needed. None of this is unique to Georgia. There are issues all over America. But those states that are able to meet those challenges, that are able to assuage them, have extraordinary opportunities going into the future. You got to ask, who's to blame for these problems? The answer is no one. The world changed. People were doing what they always did. And if they played by the rules changed. Expectations changed. They're higher. They need to be higher. We need to expect more than we've ever expected from the teacher force, from our schools, for our children. What happened is our social institutions, all of our social institutions, whether we're talking about education or government or healthcare, We're all created for an economy that's fading, the national analog economy. These organizations need to be remade. They need to be reinvented. And part of what we're doing, partnership, Woodrow Wilson, the state, support from the Woodruff Foundation, what we're seeking to do in Georgia, what we're doing together, creating a program that has 4 elements. They're designed to recruit high-ability people to become STEM teachers, high-need schools. They're designed to strengthen the ways in which those teachers are prepared to create the model programs needed for the 21st century. Those 4 elements are these. We built a coalition. Governor, led by the governor. Chief State School Officer, John Barge. State Higher Education Executive Officer, Hank Huckabee. Key legislators, Professional Standards Board, Kelly Hansen, schools, universities, administration, teacher associations, philanthropy. The reason we did that, we want these changes to last. And the fact of the matter is most programs involve perhaps a school district, maybe a university. President leaves, program ends. Superintendent goes, program goes. We wanted continuity. We're in 4 other states, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and New Jersey. Though just between us, not to leave this room, Georgia's our favorite state. What happens in our coalitions is that when people have left, they've changed presidents, they've changed governors, when they've changed chief state school officers, the coalition goes on, the program goes on. It also brings together the people who have the capacity to make decisions. Universities will say they can't make decisions because the state won't let them. Everybody's sitting at the table and says, yes, you can. We'll allow that. It also provides, with everybody at the table, pressure to act, pressure to make changes that are needed. Second element in this program is that we recruit top students, become teachers in high-need schools. Some of them are career changers, extraordinary credentials. My parents would have been so proud if I had any of them. We recruit recent grads. Maybe they decided they don't want to be a bench scientist, but they still want to stay in the sciences. For the career changers, people have told them for a very long time, don't become a teacher. It's good to become a teacher. Wanted to do it, and now they have their chance. They're choosing the profession they think they love. What we found was, very lucky so far, these people receive a $30,000 stipend. They take a 1-year master's degree program, and they agree to teach for 3 years in high-need schools in-state. Been lucky so far in terms of retention. During the 3-year period that they're expected to teach, or they have to repay their fellowship, we've had a 97 to 99% retention rate. The 4th year, where they can do whatever they want, we've had an 80% retention rate. Our teachers are 1.87 times more likely than their peers to stay. Third element, we work with universities. We've targeted universities. What they've done is agree to create model programs, 21st century, models for other universities in the state, models for other universities in the country. We went through an extraordinary vetting program. We spoke to initially 18 universities about the possibility of joining with us. We chose the ones we chose based upon the quality of their leadership, their commitment, their capacity, and their tradition of working with high-need schools. And in the end, we ended up with 5 wonderful schools. We only wanted 4. We couldn't make a decision because we wanted them all. Those are Columbus State, Georgia State, Kennesaw State, Mercer, and Piedmont. Every one of these colleges has agreed to create a program that's clinically based. They're based on what goes on in schools. Their people spend a full year in those schools. Their programs are built. Their academic programs take place in schools. Their programs are co-constructed with school districts, so the districts get what they need, not what we think they need. They bring together arts and sciences and education, so we have content as well as pedagogy. They have 3 years of mentoring once they start their jobs, and third-party evidence-based assessment. We provide incentives for universities to do this. There's very high accountability. Fourth element, we have targeted high-need districts in greatest need of STEM education. And here, we'll be working with 24 districts. Okay, here goes. This is 18 in my 20 minutes. Atlanta, Banks County, Bibb County, Chattahoochee, Clark, Cobb, Dodge, Franklin, Gwinnett, Habersham, Hall, Houston, Marietta, Monroe, Muskogee, Paulding, Rabun, Stevens. Guy's handwriting is terrible. Union, Walton, and White. Same deal. What we looked for was leadership. We looked for commitment. We looked for capacity. We asked them to help create with us an environment for new teachers that works the same way a hospital does with medical students and interns. We are really proud to join with Georgia. What's true is we chose Georgia. We wanted to be with Georgia because Georgia recognized the need. The governor was very persuasive. He told us, the future of this state rests on education. We built support. We found support from that coalition, told us to come. STEM track record, very good. Promise and potential of Georgia is enormous. So, for us, it's an extraordinary privilege to work with the state. It is a wonderful opportunity to bring the best to STEM teaching, create model STEM teacher education programs, and target all of that the children who need it the most. If we succeed, the greatest beneficiaries will be the children, the state, and the future.
As Arthur leaves the stage, I'll ask Dana and the panel members to come on up so we can keep rolling here. So Arthur says that we have resources in Georgia. We have some great partners. There are things that are getting traction now, like the Strive partnership in the 5-county metro area. We've had Ready by 21 getting traction in the larger 20-county metro area. We have some things really working across Georgia that we can leverage. The Georgia Chamber, support education so strongly. We have some really good pieces going. We have our challenges. We need to continue to hook all these pieces together. We're moving toward implementation. Our aim, our goals are to have some quality institutions that are producing quality teachers, quality STEM teachers that then can raise the achievement level of their students. Of course, then after that, we're going to be looking for sustainability. So as you look at the list of our panel members here, where are we in Georgia and where are we going? Our panel members were selected very purposely. You can see Dr. Susan Andrews, Deputy Supe for Race to the Top. She brings that voice and also the voice of a former superintendent, but she's looking specifically at the teacher evaluation piece, a real key piece there. Then what's happened in a local school district. Arthur mentioned Marietta City Schools, one of the districts involved in this partnership with the foundation. But Marietta, you may not know, is not only leading Georgia, but leading parts of our country in teacher evaluation, teacher development, and teacher comp. But then we have a teacher from Marietta City. We'll tell you whether Emily told the truth or not. So we'll know about how teachers feel and the voice on the ground. But then Penny, with PSC, has been leading that effort. But we were just with her down in Macon last Tuesday evening as they were kicking off the NTEP Advisory Council, the Network for Teacher Evaluation Programs. You know that Georgia is one of 7 states that have received a grant to help work on that process. So again, a lot of resources, a lot of pieces come together, but how can we leverage that? I'll turn over now to our Director of Policy and Research, Dr. Dana Rickman, to lead the panel. Dana?
Again, thank you for our panel for coming today. Thank you for Dr. Levine, who was a really rousing speech to get us going this morning. And I just kind of wanted to set the mood for this panel and say, you know, we all know that there is no silver bullet in education. Not one thing is going to solve all of our problems. But I think all of us can agree that having a high-quality teacher in the classroom is probably one of the closest things we're going to get to a silver bullet, and probably one of the most important things that we can do to make sure that our students graduate high school ready for college, ready for a career, ready to take on the world. And Georgia's been doing a lot in that area about how we train teachers, how we support teachers, how we assess teachers, and move them through their own careers. There's been a lot of changes. And so I want our panel to kind of address that today. And so we're going to break this discussion really into 3 parts. The first is, how are we preparing new teachers? The second part is, how are we focusing and continuing to provide professional development throughout a teacher's career? And the third area I want to touch on is, how are we implementing and supporting these changes? We can have the best programs out there on the planet, but if we're not implementing and supporting them, that really where the rubber meets the road, we're not going to find success. And so for our first question, Penny, I want to start with you. Help us understand some of the changes that we're going into preparing new teachers. For a person who just says, I want to become a teacher, what can they expect going into teacher training programs now?
Thanks, Dana. There are many changes. Can you hear me? Great, thank you. Many changes. I'm going to highlight 5 very quickly. One is that we are moving toward a much more clinical model for preparing teachers. It looks more like preparation for a career in nursing now. We call them teacher candidates. Folks who begin a teacher education program start doing field experiences very early. They often start in the freshman year, and those field experiences expand in intensity and complexity as they progress through the sophomore and junior years. Now, a second change is to what we have traditionally called the student teaching experience. That is morphing into a residency. We're moving to the 1-year model that Dr. Levine described, where these teacher residents are connected with a highly skilled mentor teacher, and they stay with that teacher throughout the year. They work the same schedule as a teacher. They participate in pre-planning days, in faculty meetings, and in post-planning days, if you will, those days after the students leave at the end of the school year. So they experience the entire year. A third change is based on research that was conducted by St. Cloud State University in Minnesota. And they found that by using the co-teaching model, which has been used successfully in special ed for years, they found that when you use that in student teaching or in this residency, that student achievement improved. And so this co-teaching model means that the mentor teacher no longer leaves the classroom. We're not asking them to leave the classroom. The teacher resident and the mentor teacher plan together, they teach together, they assess student learning together, and then that cycle continues on and on throughout the year. Now, another change is that teacher training is now moving to the P-12 schools. We have several examples in Georgia where college classes are being taught on the P-12 campus. Now, what this means is that these teacher residents, if you will, have a wonderful opportunity to have class on a P-12 school, let's say a middle school. When class is over, they walk next door and they practice what they just learned. And that faculty member is there with them to observe them and give them immediate feedback. That is so very powerful. A final change is in our assessments of pre-service teachers, and those assessments are becoming more rigorous. We're adding 2 assessments. We're adding one about educator ethics. We're adding a second that is a performance-based assessment. It's a portfolio that is completed during that teacher residency, but it actually encompasses the entire program. But this assessment was developed nationally. It will be scored by objective, nationally trained evaluators. And the beauty of this assessment is that it provides a very rich set of data on the strengths and the areas of growth for that new teacher. So that data can then be carried on into that first year of teaching and used to inform the professional learning that is needed for that new teacher.
Emily, you lead a district. How do you see these changes affecting your district in terms of how you hire and recruit new teachers?
I think that they all sound very, very positive to me. I think that when we think about recruiting teachers and bringing them into our school district, we're looking at, for the most part, a very different type of employee than existed before. So therefore, in our compensation redesign that we're doing, part of that actually is geared towards attracting and recruiting teachers into our school district. That will show themselves to be, whether they're coming out of the university or coming to us from another school district, critical thinkers and problem solvers, so that they'll be able to teach that to others. When we previously brought teachers into our field, they were certified. We hired them. They had to go through some sort of an evaluation process, but there was never the thought that you needed to continuously improve throughout your career. And continuous improvement is now part of our teacher evaluation system. So therefore, we need to be sure that we are attracting teachers into our profession with an understanding also that we need to provide strong mentoring programs, and we'll be doing that as part of our compensation redesign to leverage the talents of great teacher leaders that we currently have. We also know that we need to differentiate their professional development. Very much as you're talking about the host teacher and the pre-service teacher teaching together, sort of a yin and a yang, to learn where the strengths and the weaknesses are. We know that every teacher needs to begin to own their own professional development to get to the next level, and we need to provide experiences that differentiate that.
You know, that's a great segue into my next question. Our next set of questions is, how are we as a state providing continuous professional development throughout a teacher's career? And Penny, I want to jump back to you for a minute, that once a teacher is working in the classroom, there's sort of a new, what they call tiered certification process, and that's like a career ladder that teachers follow. And as they move up this ladder with additional experience and professional development, how have these levels changed?
Dana, we've changed our certification structure from a single tier to 4 tiers. And the first tier is the pre-service certificate, and that is actually issued when students are admitted to a teacher education program. A requirement of that certificate is a successful criminal history check and a passing score on our newly developed or soon to be developed educator ethics assessment. And that certificate, when a person completes a program, that certificate goes away, and then they are eligible for the induction certificate. The induction certificate is valid for 3 years. It is non-renewable. A district can ask for an additional year if necessary, but those 3 years are intended, as Emily said, to stress the importance of support for new teachers and to link that professional learning that you mentioned to performance in the classroom. And so to pass, if you will, that induction phase, that teacher has to meet expectations on the statewide evaluation system. If the teacher is successful in meeting the requirements of induction, then they move to the professional certificate. Now, those of you that know anything about our certification structure now, that replaces what we now call the clear renewable certificate. So all clear renewable certificates will become a professional level certificate. And if a teacher wanted to, they could maintain that professional level certificate for their entire career. In order to renew it, it has a 5-year validity period. In order to renew it, that teacher would have to again meet those performance expectations on the statewide evaluation system, meet professional learning requirements as well. Now, for those educators who perform very well, the expert teachers, they have a 4th tier, and that 4th tier has 2 options. One option is called the Advanced Professional Certificate, and this is for the individual who is a wonderful teacher and who wants to remain in the classroom and teach students all day long. The second option is called the Lead Professional Certificate, and this is for those expert teachers who also have the knowledge and the skills to work with other teachers, to mentor new teachers, to lead professional learning in the school, to work on school improvement teams. And so we believe with this 4-tiered structure that we're going to provide opportunities for continuous professional growth and opportunities that we've never had in the past for teachers who love teaching and who are great at it to move up. In the past, in order to move up, they've had to choose to go into a leadership role. So this gives them the opportunity to stay in the classroom.
Now, Penny, you said those magic words, performance in the classroom. Yes. And so, Susan, I'm coming to you next. That we've heard a lot about performance in the classroom, and now we have a new statewide teacher assessment system, and that it's been under development for several years and been piloted for quite some time. And that last week, our State Board of Education approved it to go statewide this fall. And so, Susan, without any ed speak, so if you say TEKS, LEAKS, TEMS, PEMS, I'm going to buzz you. Can you talk about the goals of this new system and what the state hopes to get out of it?
I don't know if I can talk about it without saying TEKS, LEAKS, TEM, LEM, but I'm going to try my best. Until now, the state of Georgia has never had a required teacher evaluation system consistent across the state. So districts were using many kinds of systems, most of them with a binary product, meaning a teacher would receive a satisfactory or an unsatisfactory. And there was no way to differentiate on those systems how well a teacher was doing, how much value they added to their students, how did they impact student achievement. And so we actually needed a single measure of teacher effectiveness in the state, and one that would be consistent across the state. So now we have a new teacher evaluation system. It has been piloted in the 26 participating districts with the Race to the Top grant, and lots of input from teachers and principals and experts throughout the nation about how this particular system should look. And so the most important goal of this system is to put an effective teacher in every classroom. There is no debate that that is the most important factor in impacting student achievement, is having an effective teacher in every classroom. We want to be able to determine the effectiveness of that teacher based on student progress. and based on observation of effective practices. So the new evaluation system has 50% weight on observation of effective practices and 50% determined by student progress. So there are other goals that we had in mind, and you've already heard Emily and Penny mention these. We wanted to be able to improve the quality of current teachers by being able to design personalized professional development for them based on the needs that are identified in the evaluation system. We also wanted to be sure that we could ensure equitable distribution of high-performing teachers in high minority and high poverty schools, because we know that right now there is not an equitable distribution of very, very good teachers in those schools. We want to increase the pipeline of highly effective teachers, especially in those critical needs subjects that Dr. Levine talked about, the math, the engineering, the technology, and the science areas. And we want to reduce the achievement gap between subgroups of students. So there are a lot of goals. They're very important goals, and we believe that this teacher evaluation system is going to assist us in making sure that, A, there is a very highly effective teacher in every classroom in Georgia, that those teachers who need professional development, we identify what that is and get them that help, and that we are making sure that every child, no matter where they live, has the opportunity to have a highly effective teacher in their classrooms.
Emily, again, from the district perspective, how are you guys going to be using this new evaluation system? And what comes to my mind are career trajectories for teachers, compensation, enhanced roles and responsibilities. How are you incorporating that?
Well, for those of you who really don't know how teachers are currently compensated, they're compensated in steps and lanes. Teachers receive a step and salary increase, of course, when there's no economic crisis going on, for each year that they either excel in the classroom or survive it. It's all the same, satisfactory, unsatisfactory. So it's a very slow and steady climb till you make your most money on your 30th year when you're ready to retire. Then the lanes really are how you can add additional money and compensation by getting advanced degrees, whether or not those advanced degrees align to student achievement or not, which the research is showing they don't, except in certain cases such as science or mathematics in secondary level. So what we're looking at is teacher effectiveness, and those evaluations, teacher evaluations will be part of that. Teachers will also be compensated for taking on enhanced roles and responsibilities, which is something that our teacher leaders and our new generation of teachers are going to really want to participate in if they are qualified. So that way they can make more money earlier in their careers. And then also, when you look at advanced degrees, we have already shifted to tuition reimbursement instead of automatically paying teachers for all the years of their careers for a degree that makes no impact on student achievement in their classrooms. So we've got quite a variety of options. It's not pay for performance per se, although teacher effectiveness is part of that. 80% of our teachers each year will get an effectiveness step instead of all receiving a survival step and salary increase.
Phyllis, I want to bring you in on this now. We've been talking a lot about what teachers are going to be doing and what we're going to be doing to teachers. And so I want to talk to a teacher. If you're in the classroom, you're using this new evaluation system now, or assessment system. How do you see these changes impacting your own both professional development, but also your own career goals?
I originally started as just wanting to be a classroom teacher. I loved being around my students. I loved implementing science. I'm a science teacher. And I just wanted a way to become a better teacher. But there was no clear path. There was never a clear definition of what that looked like. So I just use the advice of my administrators as far as what pathway to take, what courses to take, what committees to develop myself as a professional. So I grew as an instructor. I became a better instructor. I saw the evidence of that within the classroom. What I realized was that I was one person impacting just the set of students that I had, and I needed to find a way to impact more students. The only way for me to impact more students is to impact other teachers. So I started mentoring teachers. I've been a host for, I've developed sort of a model classroom. Now with the teacher evaluation system that has been developed, I finally have a clear way to assess how I am doing, to see my areas of weakness, to see my areas of strength, and to improve on them. It's a very reflective process. The standards that are listed on the new evaluation tool cause a lot of deep thinking and analysis, not just of your data, but of your performance, your instruction. If you have a really good administrator, it is very supportive in terms of dialogue. You can dialogue about your instruction and share that dialogue and get really good feedback from your administrator, and then you become an effective person within the classroom. So the system is helping establish clear pathways for teachers, pathways that did not exist in the past. To be part of the Marietta City Schools because we are leading the development in terms of and if we want stronger teachers, if we want highly qualified teachers, we have to recognize that way to show that recognition is through. So I can't wait for us to continue our work.
So as you continue this work and we roll this out, again, best laid plans. What do we need? We need to talk about what do we need in terms of level of support and what is going into implementing these changes. And so, Celis, I want to come right back to you and say, as they've rolled this out, because this is all very new, what kind of supports have you received and what more are you looking for? Do you think that you'll need?
Last year, we piloted the new teacher evaluation program. We only used a few select teachers, and those teachers went through the full process. Their evaluation that year did not count based on TEKS. Sorry, I just used the buzzword. But we were able to at least experience what was coming. This year, we have fully implemented the evaluation plan, and our teachers are currently, our administrators are being trained and supported. Our district hired Dr. Raquel Rampolla to help implement. So she has done a really great job of making sure all administrators across our system are aware and trained in how has helped our APs or met with department chairs so that we are aware so that we can help our teachers understand the process. Our administrators walk us through the steps, all the standards. We do a lot of faculty meetings and professional development to ensure everybody is clear on the standards. It takes a lot of support. It takes you knowing and fully understanding what is expected. I know it sounds easy to just come up with, but what they look like and making sure that you can recognize the standard in every. So it takes a lot of training, and we're still learning. I don't think we're perfect. I don't think we're there, but I think we're making great strides in understanding how to evaluate our teachers.
And from the state perspective, what have we done to get our teachers and our teacher leaders and districts ready, and what else needs to be done?
The past 3 years, the 26 participating Race to the Top districts have piloted the teacher evaluation system and the leader evaluation system. And then it was our pleasure to roll that out statewide. So for the last several months, we have been training all of the evaluators across the state. And so that mostly entails principals and assistant principals who will be evaluating teachers. So right now we have almost every principal in the state trained and almost every assistant principal, and we hope that that will be 100% by the time school begins. We are about to begin a huge communication effort for teachers and administrators and the general public about how we will combine the measures, those measures from the observation of teachers with those student progress measures. So those are two very different measures, and we have to be very specific about how they are being measured, how they're being combined, very transparent with teachers about that so that they understand how they get that rating at the end of the day on their evaluation. So that huge communication effort is about to begin. We are also providing through our regional service agencies trainers who will be in every region and in every district so that there will be an expert as close to that classroom teacher as we can get that expert. And we will send these people into classrooms with the principals when school begins in the fall to rate alongside of them in order to check our inter-rater reliability, to make sure that when we are discussing a standard, that the teacher understands what that standard looks like in the classroom, as you've talked about, that the evaluator understands what that standard looks like in the classroom. So there are going to be lots and lots of conversations around inter-rater reliability as we roll this out and make sure that we all are on the same page as far as that subjective piece of observing the teacher and finding out what's going on in that classroom. We also are working with teachers to give them a scripted orientation so that every teacher across the state will hear the same message as far as orientation. And I'm sure you've already seen that orientation video. And then there are digital modules for every standard for continuing to familiarize teachers on what each standard looks like in the classroom and what the expectations are there. We are also holding regional feedback meetings so that we can hear from teachers and administrators how the rollout of the system is working, that we can get feedback from teachers, we can answer their questions, and we can also hear their suggestions on how to refine the system, because it's still not a perfect system, and it won't be perfect, I don't think, for a long time when you're talking about human beings and the work that goes into evaluating human beings. And we want to hear from teachers about how to refine the system and what do we need to change as we move forward. And as we gather the data over the next 3 to 5 years, I hope that we'll have a very clear picture of what changes need to be made. And so as long as we have Race to the Top money, this is how this work has been funded. And that grant is going away in September of this year. But we requested from the U.S. Department of Education and received a one-year extension on the Race to the Top funding so that we can support schools and teachers in this first year of implementation. So at the end of that time, we will have the experts on the ground in each region. We will have an expert in each district to continue the training. We have developed an electronic platform to house all of the data to reduce the paperwork around the implementation of the system. And so we're building for sustainability, and we're building that capacity in districts and at the regional level so that when the Race to the Top funds have ended, we will still have the capacity to move this forward and make it just a part of our state, which the legislation that has just passed this past year requires it in every district, and the state board rule requires it now as the evaluation instrument in every school in Georgia.
So I want to bring this conversation full circle. We started talking about how we're training new teachers and then how we're using the assessment system to inform professional development and teacher ladders as they go through their career. Penny, can you talk a little bit about how the assessment system, coming back to how we train new teachers, is going to be impacting the institutions that train teachers?
Yes, I'm happy to speak to that, Dana. If you think about a continuous cycle of data and a continuous process of using these data to inform the entire process from preparation through practice and then back to preparation. That's what we've developed in our state. We have developed preparation program effectiveness measures, and because we're educators, we created an acronym for that. PPEMs, thank you. She just gave me permission to say it. These PPEMs are based on performance during a program and performance by the teacher, the pre-service teachers while they're in a program. More importantly, though, where does the rubber meet the road? It meets it when they are in the field actually teaching. And so a little over 60% of a program effectiveness measure is based on what happens after program completion. Now that is based upon the teacher effectiveness system, as well as some measures like success at induction. As I described our new tiered certification structure, those new teachers that are successful in earning the professional certificate, that reflects positively on the preparation program. So these measures will become effective, we're thinking in 2016-17, when we've had enough data come in that we can use them accurately and fairly. But they will be used to provide an annual picture of preparation program performance. And we will use that annual data to recognize and reward the high-performing programs and to find out where there are areas of growth for programs that aren't performing so well, and provide that assistance that is needed to help those programs improve. We hope that we don't have to do this, but if programs continue to perform poorly over a period of 3 or 4 years, then there's a very good possibility that they will no longer prepare teachers. And so we are bringing it full circle. We are being serious about evaluating programs and making sure that our programs in Georgia are producing effective teachers, and if they're not, then changes will be made.
And this is true for traditional programs, but also non-traditional programs as well.
Great question. Yes, we have a good number of non-traditional programs in Georgia. This system applies to both traditional and non-traditional. It also applies to leader preparation programs. Eventually, it will apply to programs that prepare other school personnel, such as school counselors or media specialists.
And my final question for the panel, we just heard, again, a great speech by Dr. Levine, and I think the most important takeaway he said was that Georgia is his favorite state. So I think we can all agree upon that. But in terms of his other takeaways, I wanted to get the panel's reaction. I mean, he talked very convincingly about the need for STEM teachers, technology in the classrooms, and also how Georgia currently measures up against the rest of the nation. So I'll open it up to the panel if you guys want to respond to some of those.
I think that for the most part, the results that we're getting in the STEM fields in K-12 education is poor. We had classrooms full of Celeste Hartley-Lewis throughout our schools. She's only one, as she said before. So I think that the focus has to be there. It has to begin when children are young as well, to help to stimulate and support that. I think that STEM is critical, and I really do think that we're all trying, but we need to do something more. We have offered signing bonuses for science and math teachers for probably the last 5 years, but that isn't enough to attract people into our profession. And that's another great issue that we have for STEM and for otherwise. Celeste will tell you that as I went from school to school and talked to the faculties about new compensation plan, and I would say to them, how many of you have your own children, your friends' children, your relatives' children that are going into teaching? And there were 106 teachers, or support staff in that room, and 15 hands went up. So there's a serious problem. So how do we make our profession one that we can really be proud of, and others want to be proud of it too? And I think some of the things you're hearing today can really help set the standard to change that as well.
You ask scientists, when did you decide that this is the field you wanted to say, when I was about the 4th grade, about 9 or 10 years old, something happened in their life that determined what they would like to be. And so Emily's statement about we have to start early. We can't wait until they are in high school and give them a great biology teacher. We cannot wait until they are in high school to connect them with an industry that has science, technology, engineering, and math as focus and as part of their business. We have to do it when they are very young. We have to hook them into this. Do that by having an effective teacher who understands that you tap into students' interests and their strengths and shows them how the world is connected. And so I think that's where we have to go. We have to start very young, and we have to have effective teachers that understand that and that will tap into those strengths of those students.
I find that students who are in our elementary schools focus so much on reading, all the things to help them be successful on these assessments. What a lot of people don't realize is that you can teach reading through science, you can teach math, all these other subjects through the STEM programs. So if we start early, if we start bringing STEM curriculum to the 3rd graders and the 4th graders, and their minds are sponges at that age, and they are so curious. And if we encourage that curiosity through critical thinking and inquiry, and we continue that through their high school careers, then we will develop strong STEM participants. We can't start at the high school level. I teach high school, and by the time they get to me, they've made up their minds what path they want to take. And sometimes I can influence and change them, but sometimes I can't. So we do need to start early. We need to believe that at that early age that they are capable of doing engineering in 1st grade. And once we start there, we'll be okay. We also need the support of our leadership. Dr. Lembeck supports STEM education. So she makes it a priority. She makes it a priority for our schools. So money is behind it. Resources are behind it. Time is behind it. If you're not going to support it, then it won't make a difference, and it won't work.
Those are the end of my questions, and so I want to thank the panel for answering them so wonderfully. And at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Levine back to the stage to join us on our panel up here and open up to the audience questions that you may have for any one of us on the stage.
Diane Hopkins is on the other side of the room, so if you just raise your hand, we'll give you a mic and you can ask your question.
I'm Jared Apperson, and I'm a PhD candidate at Georgia State University. My question is for Penny. Looking at other countries that have really seen improvements in education, one of the things that stands out from Finland is that they've really raised the bar to get into teaching programs. So I'm glad that we're going to be moving towards evaluating our programs to see what is most effective, and I wonder if there's any thought that's gone into raising the bar to get in the first place.
Thank you for asking that. Yes, thought has gone into that at the national level as well as at the state level. And we just last week at the Professional Standards Commission adopted the new standards that have been issued by the Council for Accreditation of Educator Preparation. Of course, there's an acronym to go with that, CAPE. CAPE replaces now what used to be NCATE and TAC, two acronyms. I know, I'm in big trouble. But CAPE has developed standards that are far more rigorous for educator preparation. They are more focused on outcomes, but also they have a standard that requires that the average GPA of all people who are admitted to teacher education programs across a college or a university, all programs, that average GPA is 3.0. And we have adopted that in Georgia. Now, one thing we did differently here in Georgia, as you know, with an average, you could have somebody with a really low GPA and somebody with a really high GPA. We have set a minimum floor of 2.5 for our minimum GPA, but requiring that average of 3.0. Selectivity is very, very important. We do want the top students going into education. We think that that is very important. We also, though, want to give credence to what we call dispositions, those attitudes and those beliefs. We think that those are very important. They can make or break a teacher. And so we want to give an opportunity to those students who might have a lower GPA, but who show that potential and that desire and those great attitudes and beliefs to become a wonderful teacher. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Finland does something that we don't do, which is another element of the equation. Finland has something that many countries in Europe have, which is called numerus clausus. And what they do is they gear the number of people they bring into the university, jobs that are available in the labor market. So if they need 5 physics teachers, maybe they'll bring in 6. That increased selectivity. But we sort of do the reverse of that. And what we do is we bring in lots and lots and lots of people, many, many more than we can hire. Just we have a glut of elementary school teachers that we prepare, too many to get jobs. We don't have enough in math and science, so we have vacancies. The extent that we can help universities shape the populations they admit so that they have more relevance to the kinds of jobs we need to fill, that would be another way to increase standards. Another element here is that 50% of the people who train to become teachers never become teachers. If we reduce the numbers, we could also increase quality. And you just reminded me of something, which is I never introduced my colleague Tom Bordenkircher, who's working with, who is the person who's directing our efforts in Georgia. And the reason I thought of him was he's been instrumental in developing the CAPE standards.
I also wanted to add to that when I said that we were doing tuition reimbursement, we're accepting those applications that are going to align with the needs of our school system. So we recommended if they're applying that they apply for STEM-related fields, for advanced degrees in reading, and in other things that could really affect their practice and pay for that as a school district.
Hi, my name is Etienne Legrand. Thank you so much for your discussion and conversation this morning. I'm really pleased to hear about some of the progress that's happening at the state level and just in Georgia generally about how we're moving to do a better job of thinking about the needs of teachers to do the jobs that we're asking them to do. I have a couple of questions, and the first really is for Celis, if I'm saying that correctly. So we've got 30% of teachers are engaged in their work, right, which is no different than the general population. And some of the steps that are being taken that we've heard about in terms of more support and development and increasing responsibility will probably help on that engagement front. But what are your thoughts about other things that might happen to deepen engagement? Because I think if we think about it, engagement and effectiveness have got to be highly correlated. That's one. And two, in terms of the evaluation piece, I mean, there's a lot overemphasis on how we build weaknesses. What do we do in that system to build strengths? And the last thing is just, you know, as Dr. Levine talked about, STEM is now kind of where we find ourselves as our economy has evolved. It's going to evolve again, right? And so I just get a little concerned about diving into this one thing to the exclusion of others. And oughtn't we have a system of education that allows children to explore their interests no matter what they are? So just want some comment about all that.
Okay, so let's see if I have this right. The first one is engagement. The second one was strengths, and the last one had to do with the unknown in the future, right? Okay. Right. Okay, so the engagement question, I think there are a lot of opportunities, especially in STEM, for engagement. I think the issue is awareness. For instance, I participated as a NASA teacher in space through a Boeing program years ago. I didn't know about the program. I knew nothing about the program. My principal came one day and said, "Hey, I have a spot. Are you interested?" I didn't know that people would apply for this program. I didn't know the program existed. That's just one of hundreds of programs that are out there. We just don't know about them. So what we need is a way to inform STEM educators of enrichment programs, of programs at Lockheed or Boeing or engineering or Georgia Power or any of these facilities. I know there are things like GIFT. Georgia Tech has GIFT here where teachers can apply and have internships, but they need those experiences. The classroom is not the only place for us to receive engagement. We have to go out into the world, get experiences, and then we bring them back to the classroom. So you have to continually provide STEM teachers with exposure to what's happening in the real world. So a great program like the Woodrow Wilson program that prepares the teachers is great at the beginning, but we need other programs and other opportunities to continue that engagement. The second one about strengths, I think teachers just need mentors. They need a place to share, to bounce ideas. So I know that we have things like professional learning centers where teachers work as a PLC group and they interact, but we need more things where teachers can get great ideas and learn from each other's strengths. So maybe collaborative learning communities where you have strong teachers collaborating and exchanging ideas digitally or informally. We just need more of that kind of collaboration. I am also uncertain about the future. I think the evaluation tool is fantastic. I think that anytime you ask a teacher to be reflective about their instruction and to think if what they're doing works, I think it's a great move. I am uncertain about how we measure effectiveness. I'm uncertain about assessments and the new developments. I'm uncertain about how you measure growth when a student is taking a variety of subjects. How can I measure growth when my student takes in 9th grade physics, then biology, then chemistry? There isn't a linear progression there. So we're going to have to be very creative in how we evaluate or assess student growth. That's a big unknown. So I share your apprehension there.
All along the way during the year, as teachers are evaluated, there are opportunities for conversations with their administrators. And what teachers have told us is this is the best professional conversations we have ever had with our administrators, because they have 2 observations, formal observations in the classroom. They can be announced or unannounced depending on what the district wants to do. And then there are 4 walkthrough opportunities where the administrator walks through looking for particular standards, the implementation of particular standards. and then there's a midterm conference and an end-of-the-year conference. But there are opportunities all throughout the year for that professional conversation about what your strengths are and, of course, what your weaknesses are, but focusing on those strengths and determining where do we go from here. What specific professional development do you need or can you provide because of your strengths? And so we're hoping that that continued professional conversation will just continue to strengthen the teachers and give them some pride in the fact that, hey, you're a leader in this area. How can you affect the other teachers in this school and in this district with your knowledge and your expertise in that area?
This is a question I'd like to hear Dr. Lembeck's thoughts, but one of you all talked about equitable distribution of effective teachers, and I've been hearing that a lot at Atlanta Public Schools as well. In order to identify effective teachers, you necessarily means you're also identifying ineffective teachers. So my question is, what are your thoughts on what to do with the ineffective teachers? Do you allow them to stay in the classroom? Do you fire them? Do you send them to mentor training? I mean, what are your thoughts on how to deal with that?
Built into the evaluation process really is the opportunity to really help teachers to improve. And that's part of the conferencing and part of the many, many different types of differentiated support you can give them. Ultimately, if a teacher is not effective, first of all, beginning 2016, our 20% of those teachers, of our teachers, will not get a step increase in salary if they're not effective. But ultimately, they don't stay with us. We do what needs to be done, and those teachers don't need to be in the classroom with a child for another year if that child is not effective.
They also will not be able to renew their teaching certificate. Penny, you could probably talk more about that.
New tiered certification structure is fully implemented. Educators at that professional level will have a 5-year validity period, and within that 5-year validity period, if they have 2 summative, that means the whole year, the evaluation for the whole year, if they have 2 summative evaluations that are at the bottom 2 levels of the 4-leveled teacher evaluation system, if they have 2 of those low ratings that have not been remediated, and that means they have not done something to improve, something to address those problems, then their certificate will not be renewed. That is in state law.
Hi, Ann Duffy. I have a question, I think mostly for Dr. Lembeck, but I'd love to hear other thoughts. As you were just discussing, the implementation of the evaluation systems is high stakes, should drive some significant change in terms of improving teacher practice and providing good professional growth opportunities for teachers. But the implementation is challenging. So I'm curious, Dr. Lembeck, if you could reflect a little bit about what are the things that you have done as a district to ensure effective implementation, and what kind of conditions need to exist long-term for the implementation to be successful?
First of all, I think Celeste mentioned that we did hire someone to make sure that there's inter-rater reliability, so that our teachers are assured that their principal or their assistant principal is evaluating them to the same standard as every other school is having is taking place. They need that assurance that the process for evaluation is going to be fair and equitable. I think that what I'm hearing from most teachers is that they know that this is better. What they also know is that the leaders have a new evaluation process as well. And they too are highly accountable for the development not only of themselves but of their teaching force. We provide a lot of professional development in our school district. And as I said earlier, I think teachers now are beginning to realize that they need to own some of that, to look at what's happening and saying, you know, In my last conversation with the principal, she suggested I improve in this. I see all of this as being offered either after school or over the summer with a stipend being paid, and I need to avail myself of that. I think support needs to be there. I think celebration needs to be there. I think that we need to really support the teachers through the process, through rewards, through recognition. If they want to innovate, if they've got great ideas, we need to help to fund those so that they can continue to make a difference. And I do think that those that are remaining in the profession, and we're seeing some now that are choosing to exit, those that remain know that they are part of something that is really great, and they want to make a difference for the children that they serve. And that gets to that other affective part of what a teacher does. It's all very, very complex, but ultimately they have to show results that they are making a difference in students academically as well.
And I'd like to address the difficult part as far as time management for the principal and the assistant principal. This is going to change the culture of their work. And there are a million things that a principal can spend their time doing. And it starts very early in the morning and it goes very late in the evening. But because this evaluation system is going to focus on what is going on in those classrooms, it's going to change their focus. They're going to have to be in those classrooms doing the walkthroughs, doing the conferences with teachers, the observations with, and they're going to have to do a different kind of time management than they've done before. So it is challenging for them. But what is their most important job as a school leader? Number one, we all know it's safety. Make sure that those children in that building and those employees in that building are as safe as they can be. Number two, good instruction. So if they've been spending their majority of their time on other things, then they're going to have to shift to spend it on safety, number one, of course we all agree on that, and good instructional practice and making sure that that's what's happening and that that's the expectation in that school. It's a challenge, the time management piece, but I think it's going to change the culture of what principals and assistant principals do during the day.
To get back to that whole concept, that's where the extra enhanced roles and responsibilities come in for our teacher leaders, because they can take on some of the projects that normally occur, such as extended learning coordinator, all the extra after-school programs that happen over breaks, over the summer, after school. Why not reward a teacher that wants to take it on and give them an extra $7,000 a year to do that so they can make more money? Teachers, you can no longer have one successful teacher in a grade level or in a content area. They all have to be working together. And they have to be working together as a school team, whether they are administrators or teachers, to support each other if they're going to get the work done.
One quick comment, which is that the efforts that people have described so far, they're really the future. The reality is that education changed. When I talked about the transition from an industrial to an information economy, what industrial economies do is care deeply about process. If you look at our schools, they look a little like an assembly line. Take children at age 5, we march them through 12 years of this process, 180 days a year, for lengths of time dictated by the Carnegie Corporation in 1906. And what's happening now is, change that. What we've said is, we care about the outcomes. Time will be variable, not X number of minutes, 3 days a week or 5 days a week. Instead, what's going to matter most is mastery. So we're switching from inputs and process to outcomes. But most importantly, what we're really switching from is a focus on teaching to a focus on learning. What matters is, what are children learning in our classes? And the kinds of measures we're talking about of the pioneering efforts to create the materials, processes, and measures of how we know how kids are learning, help them learn, help their teachers be more effective. And I think it sounds wonderful.
Hi, my name is Janelle McLeod. I am a Master of Public Policy student at Georgia State. And I had a question about substitute teachers and parapros, if there are any plans to develop the quality of substitute teachers. In speaking to a lot of school leaders, they're concerned about taking their full-time teachers out the classroom and putting in substitutes, fear of a lost day of instruction and things of that nature. So I was wondering if we have any plans to develop those types of teachers.
It is difficult to keep our schools staffed with substitute teachers currently. And therefore, we're even considering at this point outsourcing that to make sure that we at least have coverage with hopefully a better quality of substitute, because they know they'll be gainfully employed more than just the few hours every week. Substitute teachers, you would hope that ultimately we reduce absenteeism of our current staff. However, we're looking at ways to do that as well. That's a tough one.
Thank you. I'm a retired educator who comes to these things partly to say what teachers in the classroom can't be here to say today. And I've been to a whole series of meetings and conferences and everything. The term that keeps coming up over and over again is the coming perfect storm. I think teachers like all the goals, they like the idea of the conferences, but this is coming, Common Core at another level is coming, the teacher training thing is coming. I've yet to hear a single teacher say that they love high-stakes multiple choice tests. And so there's all that transition. I'm just worried. I'm old enough to remember Sputnik and what happened in the schools then. And I'm worried about having potentially good things not being given the resources, the time. A principal said the other day to me, I would love to do all that, but I'm being asked to do other things that interfere, that even she wouldn't consider a high priority. So how to have all that happen, and I just want to add in that I'm hearing more people talk about STEAM programs, where it's science, technology, arts. And as a historian, that I also want good citizens. So how to make sure that, like in the Sputnik years, we don't emphasize STEM in such a way as to not realize that students do better in art and science, in math and science, when they have art and music, and not to penalize them that way.
I agree with you, and I believe in teaching the whole child, which includes all of that. And I love to be in an art class where they're using technology and to see the actual products that those children can produce using the technology. But so I think we have to change. When we think about technology, don't think about just the hard sciences and how that affects them, but how it affects music and art and drama and dance and all of those things. Technology is intertwined, all of those things too. So we have to continue to teach the whole child, but understand that technology is in this digital age affects every one of those areas also.
I think the kind of problem you're describing is so very real. We've just gone through 30 years of school reform, starting with Nation at Risk, which has been characterized largely by the reform du jour. What flavor works today? I think what we're seeing now, though, is a coalescence of opinion. And with the Common Core, what we're seeing is an effort to raise the quality of instruction and provide a richer curriculum than we've seen in the past, because kids need it. I think what we're seeing with standards is that we're asking, what are the outcomes we really want kids to know and learn? And we're seeing with the assessments, the tools put in place to try to learn whether kids are actually achieving those things. I think none of them are perfect yet. I think we're going to see a revolution in some of those areas. I think assessment, when we look back on it in the future, we'll say what we have now is primitive. Looks sort of like imagine if your GPS worked the same way testing works today. Every hour, your GPS would report back to you. Say, bad news, you're 80 miles away from where you wanted to be, and you're driving in the wrong direction. That's not so useful. What's better is your GPS picks it up as you're doing it. And by the way, what we're doing now is you made the wrong turn, recalculating. And I think we're going to do the same kind of thing in education. I recently saw a textbook, and the way it worked was, you and I are both going through math, and we're both learning fractions and division by fractions, and you nail it, but I'm having real problems. The textbook adapts to my problems and keeps giving me new material until I can get to the same level that you've reached with that assignment. And what we're going to see, I think, in the future is summative evaluations and summative evaluations and formative evaluation and formative evaluation and formative evaluation. And by the time you come to the end, it'll be a summative evaluation. The goal will be to help children progress rather than judging when they haven't. So what we're going to see is increasing efforts to improve assessment. We're going to see increasing efforts to make that Common Core work. And we're going to see increasing efforts to make standards. In fact, we want kids to learn. And the common complaint about teaching to the test, I think it's going to disappear. What we're going to find is the test is invisible. The test is simply the measure of whether we've achieved the standard. Standard dictates what we're going to teach, not the test.
Asked us to just give a few final thoughts, and I want to just point to what's behind me and highlight the word partnership, and just reiterate that all of these changes, all of these reforms that we're working on at various agencies and organizations across the state require partnerships. They require partnerships among teachers in schools, teachers and principals, schools, and higher ed institutions, other organizations that prepare teachers, and among agencies. And we need you. You're here because you're interested in this work. So walk away today thinking about what you can do, whatever your role is, to move this work ahead so that our students are the winners. That's why we're all here.
Thank you. Marietta City Schools is a charter system. So as a charter system, we all are always talking about using our time, our talent, our limited resources, and our partnerships differently to make a difference for the students that we serve. Once again, partnerships are critical. Even that you're here really helps to build understanding of the work that's being done in schools, how public education is reforming and will continue to reform. To the comment about it's a perfect storm, we're in public education. We are charged with really reforming the lives and bettering the lives of the masses of our country. But we were the latest to the table to accept responsibility for reforming ourselves. So here we are, and we have a lot of work to do because there's no time for those students who can no longer get jobs if they drop out.
Educator, I've often been amazed that the people who speak the loudest about what's wrong with schools never go in one. And they often think, well, I went to school, so I know what goes on there. But I would like to invite each of you who is not an educator to visit your local public school and see what is going on behind the doors. And we have strengths and weaknesses as you do in your industry and in your business. But we have some excellent things going on where children in every school, somebody's caring for them. There are good teachers in that school. There are bright students in that school, and there's good leadership. And I want you to see it firsthand, and then you will know exactly what we're talking about. And I was often asked as a superintendent why I found it so important to go into every classroom. But it's because until I saw those children, sometimes I didn't think about them every day. But once I saw their faces, I had to do what was right for every single one of them. And once you see their faces in those schools, whether you're with Georgia Power or Lockheed or whatever, you're going to have to do something good for them and know that they're your future employees and they're the future of our nation and our world. So I invite you into your local public schools.
Teachers need support. That's what we need. We need resources. We need help. We need support. And if you are a business member, a member of the community, any support you can provide, be it time, be it resources, be it volunteering, do it. Just take a day, like she said, and visit your local high school, your local middle school, and volunteer. Spend a day, spend a few hours. You just remember high school from when you were there. It doesn't look the same way. It doesn't look the same way when I started. So I think everybody needs to see what education really looks like today before they can form an opinion about what we should do about it. So come on in.
So thank you very much, panel, and I'd like to invite Shan Cooper back up to the stage for us.
Please join me in thanking our panelists today. Thank you so much. And as we close, just a few closing comments. I really have a real passion around education, and I think Penny, and one of my favorite teachers now here, has said it is important that you go out to the classroom. That is the one thing that I try to do at least 3 or 4 times a year. It's important. I think it's extremely important that we support our teachers. This topic today was very personal for me. Many of you have probably heard my story, but my daughter actually finished law school and actually decided she wanted to be a teacher. And as you said, Dr. Levine, the first thing she heard was, oh gosh, you want to be a teacher, but you got a law degree. Let me tell you, she has never been happy. My comment to her was, honey, find your passion. If it's educating our youth, we need that. Go do that. And she's in her 2nd year of teaching. I've never been more proud of her. Now, her dad wasn't as happy because he's a lawyer. She didn't follow in his footsteps, but that's okay. But she knows that she's making a difference. And so when it comes to the topic of supporting our teachers, I'm the #1 cheerleader probably in the state for that. I believe it's something that we have to go do. And so again, I'm just so excited to be a part of this discussion today. I'll thank Dr. Lembeck publicly, because when she made that decision, that career choice, I called Emily up and said, hey, can you talk to her about what this is going to mean for her? Because I didn't have that as an experience, but I knew someone who had it as an experience. And so again, let's support our teachers. I tell you what, I could not be a teacher. It's the hardest job in the world to me. And that's the one career, if you think about it, that touches every other career. And so it's important. And so I thank the panelists for all the work that you are all doing. And again, thank you all for being here. Thanks for your participation. And we'll see you at the next Critical Issues Forum. Have a good day. Thank you.